What's up, you lazy, entitled, basement-dwelling millennials, bootstrapping boomers, apathetic Xers, and goddamn Gen Z kids? Today, we are talking about immigration. Again, because it's a fucking election year.
And just any other year,
And
apparently,
any year.
if you're Fox News or a Republican.
They never shut the fuck up about it.
Except for when a Republican is the president. Then it's only a topic because they just bring it up as themselves, and they just clap themselves on the back, so much for
doing nothing,
for securing the border, even though you don't do anything to change that, other than to spend more money on things that don't actually secure the border.
It's true. There's been a lot of talk about the border crisis. We got
Border crisis.
Greg Abbott. He did air quotes there for all of us who aren't actually watching us on YouTube. Border crisis in air quotes. We got Greg Abbott cosplaying Confederacy over the quote unquote border crisis.
I mean, it's a fantasy for most conservatives, I think.
It really is. They have a big thing about losing. It's kind of their favorite thing,
losing the popular vote and just votes in general.
Losing the popular vote, losing the Civil War. There's
a lot of L's on that chart.
There's a lot of L's on their side. I mean, long term, until they overturned Roe v. Wade here recently. And Citizens United, those have been pretty much the only W's they've gotten in a long time.
Right, which it's a arguable W.
I mean, their W's,
right.
you get what I'm saying. Obviously, they didn't want the blacks to be able to vote or do water fountains and bathrooms with them or anything like that. And
they lost that one.
Anyway, back to the border crisis.
Yeah. It's all that anybody can talk about right now.
It's a huge thing. Biden's going to send the F-15s to eliminate Texas's air superiority, because those are an air superiority fighter.
Yeah,
by the way.
I don't know. That's a whole. I feel like that's it's not based in reality.
No, it's not. I mean, none of this is based in reality. They just caught that terrorist at the border. Did you hear that they didn't actually catch because he's not the same guy?
I've heard they were like, oh, we caught 8 terrorists since
on
beginning of the year, and I was
TikTok.
like,
no, just a week or two ago. They're like, oh, we caught this Samalavadov. I don't know how to fucking say his name, but some guy from Buka. He's been in prison.
Buka, Florida.
No, that's Boca.
Oh, whatever.
B-U-K-A. Somewhere in the Middle East, this dude had been in prison, and he just got out last year. And they're like, we caught him at the border trying to sneak in with the illegals. And some guy messaged me about it on TikTok because he's like, I got the gotcha for the TikTok guy. And I'm like, I don't think you do, buddy. And he's like, no, I do. See, what do you have to say about this? And it's just some shitty camera video. And then there's another person look, it's this picture. And it's this picture from this dude from 15 years ago. And I'm like, I don't think, I haven't debunked this, but I don't think that that's the same guy. And then I went and I looked it up, and I'm like, that dude is old and gray now, and the dude you caught at the border, that you think is the same guy, he looks exactly like that guy did 20 years ago.
Maybe he's his son, and he's coming back for vengeance.
And the amount of people who are just helping, no, that's the guy. Or if once I equivocally proved them wrong. I'm like, the dude's got a social media. It's not a great social media presence, but he's got one, right? He's got a YouTube channel that 3 people subscribe to, and
that's
whatever. He's there. I'm like, you can see that this is the dude, and this is not the dude that you think is the dude. And they're like, yeah, well, you mean to tell me that you don't think there's any terrorists coming across the border?
No, it's all just any terrorist, right? Instead of we actually caught one. I just they're saying all these terrible people could be coming across. All these military age males are coming across. I'm like, first of all, 20 to 40, that's the age that you would expect people to come across, to want to immigrate into another country, because that's when they are the most working age group of people.
And
that are
also
gonna
can like walk from Central America
right,
to
like,
the
you don't expect a 50-year-old or 60-year-old to be making the trek from the southern Mexican border plus to the Texas border. Like, you're just not going to expect that very much.
No.
And second of all, it's like
expected just a wave of people in walkers coming across the border. Like.
right. But like, so if over all these years, right, millions of people have like illegally immigrated, and whatever, we could debate the numbers, but like supposedly millions, and they're like, there's enough of them to we should be we should be discouraging that from happening, that are criminals. Like, certain portion of them are terrorists, certain portion of them are like felons, and that's going to be bad for America. Why aren't you talking about the externalities of them being in America for a couple years?
Right.
Like, they're just laying low for
Yeah,
now.
they're just waiting.
They're waiting for the switch to flip, and then they're gonna start doing all these bad, terrible things.
And that's like the most ridiculous thing too, is like, so who is organizing all of these like military and 46% of undocumented immigrants are women. Like 46%. And 17% are children.
Sure.
So like, your numbers still aren't that great. I mean, at best, you're looking at 30 to 40% maybe military age men, and like, and then who's organizing them? Who's the grand Pumbaa of all of this shit?
Oh, they've got cells, Jordan. They have Facebook.
Hey, it's where the white nationalists organize.
that's
so
what I'm saying.
obviously that's where the Mexican.
That's the first thing that comes to their mind. They're like, they got to be on Facebook forming these groups. If we can do it, so can they.
Even they're not that fucking dumb.
A private group. Come on, that's all they're saying. It's private, right? Nobody could see what's on there.
Oh, okay. This is gonna be a good one today.
We're gonna make it through it, hopefully, with some sort of just relevancy.
Anyway, yeah, we have an outline here. Should we try to?
Yeah,
start
let's try it. I guess we could start, from the first thing, because we didn't make it past that. Okay, so immigration, and I'm gonna say it for Americans, and I'm gonna say it for you: border, border, border. In case you can't tell who that is, that's Mike Johnson this week. This is the wedge issue of wedge issues that is it's not a new thing. It's been around for about a decade.
I mean, it's been around forever.
But specifically, like this level of like, this is the number one issue that we're gonna pound and pound and pound on people's heads. I actually just watched a documentary, a PBS Frontline documentary about Steve Larson, Steve Bannon, Breitbart, and Trump and his campaign, and like, we are going to do, like, this is all we're going to do. We're going to find our candidate who's going to be our true Republican candidate for presidency. And then they found Trump, and they're like, he's going to be our imperfect tool to like say all the shit.
He is certainly an imperfect tool.
So like, they were like, yep, immigration is going to be our only issue, along with like trade a little bit, but like basically just immigration, because it's worked in a few different races, and we really think it's going to make.
And because the morons who fucking vote for these people can't focus on more than one issue at a time.
Well, yeah, keep it to one or two, right?
Yeah, you got to keep it simple, stupid.
But so like, this is the wedge issue of all wedges for the last decade. This is like the big thing. It's I don't know exactly what to like. I don't want to say like insidious, but like it's using like human psychology in its worst way possible, by playing to your face.
I mean, it's like, otherism. It is literally the exact, and I hate using this comparison, this analogy, but it's the Jewish Nazi comparison. I mean, it's
Trump has said the words that Hitler did almost verbatim in his recent campaign. So it's almost like you kind of have to make the comparison at this point.
It's painful to say it because it's overdone a tad, but I mean, like when people are being fascist,
right? Like, call it out. Call a fascist, right?
Like, yeah, if the shoe fits, so to speak. And I just. It's what it is. It is the other. It's the otherism. It's the boogeyman
Right.
of the people you've never actually really seen or interacted
In which
with,
of which there are very little
Mhm.
statistics to show that they're
Mhm.
actually bad for your communities
Mhm.
in any meaningful manner.
There's zero statistics to show.
Well, right.
I will
Yeah.
go with zero. I will solidly go with there's zero statistics to show that there is.
Immigrants are worse than any American citizen in
Mhm.
any bad metric.
Yeah.
I mean, I would very tend to agree with you.
I've done some extensive looking into the metrics. There's nothing. There's literally nothing. And the fact is that we've got probably the most restrictive immigration laws in history right now, as far as the United States goes.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean,
We haven't per like capita, we probably let in less people and less people than like ever have before on like a yearly basis.
that and
And
the hoops that they have to jump through to get in.
Yeah,
and
I don't
stay
think those
in.
have changed in too much in the last like 50
extensively.
years. Just like the lawful immigration ways,
Yeah.
methods. Like,
I mean, at one point, you just showed up at Ellis Island, you
Oh.
wrote your name in a book, and you walked in.
got
I mean,
it. So you're saying like beyond like the last like 50 to 60 years, like compared to
Mhm.
where we were like 100 years ago.
Yeah, just in the history of our country, I
Yeah.
would say that our immigration laws have gotten increasingly more stringent.
Yeah.
I mean, we're down to it is 1%.
Right.
I'm going way off script here.
Yeah.
But it is 1% of people who want to immigrate to the United States that are eligible to actually legally immigrate to the United
Like,
States
are
in any given
approved?
year.
Are approved?
No. Eligible. Not even approved. Eligible. 1% of all the people who globally who want to immigrate to the United States are eligible in their current situation to be approved. Like they could even begin the process, and that doesn't include all of the money then that they have to spend
Right.
to do that. I mean, it's 12 to $1,800 just to apply for a green card.
Right.
Like, just think about that. Like,
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of money for most Americans that
Right.
just have laying around.
Mhm. And that's if you meet all of these other criteria,
Right.
and
Yeah, we're not getting the tired and poor
No.
at this point.
And what people don't understand is that when that happens, like when you say, all right, well, we're gonna say that no, unless you fit these very specific parameters, the people aren't gonna stop trying to come in. They're just now not doing it legally. So people who could have done it legally before.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the crux of this issue is that,
Mhm.
like, the biggest thing that Republicans are saying is, like, all these people are legal immigrants. And it's like, well, it's only illegal because we have made it,
Mhm.
we haven't allowed them a legal path. And then we've just determined the way that they're doing it is illegal. We
Mhm.
could easily make a way to make it easy to come work in America,
Mhm.
and then make it legal, and there wouldn't be as many illegals in the
Mhm.
country anymore.
Yep. Yeah, it's like think about how easy it is for us to go anywhere in the world. Like
Right.
as Americans.
Yeah, right.
Like think about how easy it is for us to go to Mexico.
Yeah,
Cruise across the border. The
Right,
hardest part's
if
getting
you-
back into
if-
the fucking country.
if you have an enhanced or real ID, you can drive across the
Mhm.
border, and then you can drive back without a passport.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
that's pretty crazy when you think
Mhm.
about it. Or that's
Eh.
like almost Europe-esque, you know?
Uh-huh.
Like, it's like driving from France to Poland.
Mm-hmm. And what I don't understand is like what are they really trying to keep out? Like what is everybody so afraid of? And the thing I always get, because obviously we're in Minnesota and we know nothing about the border, but the fucking Canadians, man, I'm gonna tell you, are swatting them off with. No, we're not.
They don't want to come here.
They don't want to be here. This is the last place they want to be. They're like, could we actually like?
They're gonna keep their free health care, and
I want to put a little bit of distance between. We'll move more into the tundra to get away from you a little ways.
right. Well, okay. So getting back a little bit more on topic.
Mhm.
Obviously, it was mostly my fault that we ended up here.
Fed right into it.
Well, I fed the beast, and that's this conversation. So to be clear, there is an actual immigration crisis.
Oh yeah.
The border crisis is manufactured in a way, and certainly like the terrible aspects of it are certainly manufactured by the right and by conservative media. But there are actual bad things happening on the border and to America because of migration. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also going to spend a lot of fucking time talking about how insane the propaganda is about the border, because it's the number one issue for Republicans, and it's the number one issue because they do simultaneously nothing about it other than just like spending money to ship people
Bitch about it.
back and trying to build a wall that never gets built, that's proven to not help anything. And so obviously it's what you would expect out of a true Republican policy, if there ever has been one, that was not purely just based off not having black people allowed to vote.
Yeah.
This is their next iteration of that line. But
Mhm.
it is insane the amount of just jackhammering this propaganda, this one issue into the minds of America as a whole, and how it has captured the Republican Party.
And it's amazing to me too, because like outside of Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, uh most of these people voting on this issue have never met a fucking Mexican in their goddamn life. Like
Right. Well, I mean, I was when I'm doing some research, like before the 90s, like most immigration was very localized in like New York, California, Illinois, Texas, like very regional type issue. And then post some, pretty piss poor regulation, it became a thing where now somehow more people are doing it illegally now, and now it's a nationwide. There are hundreds of thousands of undocumented people in almost every country in the contiguous 48 states now. No longer
every
is it
state.
hundreds of thousands in every state, which is fair because we've been doing it for 25 fucking years. But
Also, hundreds of thousands. I mean, sounds like a lot.
no, right?
And in North Dakota, that would be fucking huge. I mean,
Right.
there's 12 people, and if 100,000 of those 12 people are illegal immigrants,
I mean, we're talking about a single digit percentage for most states. So like even on that basis alone, this issue does not garner the attention that that it's receiving. And if there was actually a national security threat, like we said earlier, there would be reports of catching the immigrant terrorists and the the rapists that are coming across. It's not a thing. If that was a thing, you'd hear about it because Fox News would be dishing that stuff every fucking day for dinner, son.
Oh
But
my God.
they're not. All they can do is give platitudes about how
The
there's
war
an
on
open
Christmas.
border.
They would not be going on the war on Christmas if we were catching terrorists at the border. And,
Right.
and here's the thing is, I want to point out, because this is always the thing. Oh, you're telling me that they've never caught a terrorist at the border? No, they probably fucking have.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking in the numbers of hundreds of thousands of millions of people over years, yes, they've caught hundreds of potential people on terrorist watch lists.
I'm telling you, it's fucking irrelevant, is what I'm
Yeah,
fucking telling you. I'm
it's
telling
less
you
than
that
it's like 1,000%. Like
your
if
local
that.
Klansman is much more likely to be a
Yes.
terrorist than
Yes.
anybody coming across the
Your
goddamn
local
border.
white supremacist group is a bigger threat to you personally than any immigrant will ever be.
Which is why. Okay, I'm gonna go off. Unless you keep me on track, I'm gonna keep going off script on this.
All right, we'll get your point, and then we'll get back on.
Immigrants commit crime at a third of the rate, or I think it's half to a third. I have the numbers in here somewhere. Like I said, I'm not following the fucking script. I did put the numbers in here. Immigrants, so law-abiding citizens commit crime, and I'm going off the top of my head here, but it's about, or not law-abiding, American citizens, natural-born citizens commit crime at roughly 1,400 per 100,000 or whatever it is.
Okay.
That's the rate. Undocumented immigrants at 700 per 100,000.
Sure.
And then documented legal immigrants commit crime at like 500 per 100,000.
Sure.
So
not including the crime of coming over the border.
And that's probably why it's the
1,400 or 700.
the 700 or and I don't know exactly like how they figured that out, but that was a Cato study. I mean, it's a legitimate study, and that comes, I have to say, specifically from Texas because they keep track of that thing where most states don't.
Sure.
But it's funny that the evidence from Texas shows that the immigrants aren't the problem.
I mean, they never have been, and they never will be, other than to the extent of which we're going to outline here. And it's not going to be because they're bad people.
Yeah,
that's not the
All
issue. But why are we still talking about this? Because it feels like we've been talking about immigration since ever. But if you want to talk about in sort of modern political terms, basically since Reagan really made it a huge topic.
But the weird thing was, and I hate Reagan with a passion. I don't know if any of our listeners,
one of his great passions, actually, to hate Reagan.
Don't know if any of our listeners knew how I felt about Reagan, but in case you didn't know, he's the devil incarnate. Him and Kissinger and Dick Cheney.
Yeah, those are the triumvirate.
The unholy trinity.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that I can't even criticize Reagan on.
Because the script was flipped in the 80s, in that Democrats were very much anti-undocumented immigration, and Republicans were the ones who were saying, we need to have empathy. We need to, bring them into our country and help them build a better lives for themselves.
Feel so dirty.
And obviously now the scripts have flipped.
Mhm.
It's a little bit weird seeing Ronald Reagan debate George Sr. about like how we need to be empathetic towards immigrants. It's like it kind of gives me the ick, but it's a real thing. You go look it up, watch some of their debates. They have the correct take now.
Reagan gave amnesty to all of the undocumented immigrants in America.
Yeah, and he did even criminalize, to a huge extent, future undocumented people, to the extent that Bill Clinton did in the 90s. Reagan did a better job than Bill Clinton did
on immigration.
100%.
I hate saying that. Oh man, it feels so dirty and wrong.
But we're fair people here, and we do have to give credit where credit is due. It's bittersweet, but
it is true. And you know what? So here's one of the things that Republicans always say today is that they want to let all the illegal immigrants in so they can vote Democrat.
The replacement theory,
which is the dumbest fucking shit.
We should have talked about that in a conspiracy episode.
We really should have. But that's one of their things, right? Oh, they want to let him in so they vote for him, right? But you think about Reagan giving amnesty to a bunch of undocumented immigrants, and older immigrants, not undocumented specifically, but older immigrants tended to be more conservative, across the board. Sure. Mexican immigrants,
as
Muslim.
you get older, generally you do become more conservative.
No. I mean, they were their entire life. Life.
Gotcha.
Because you think about it, Mexicans are heavily Catholic.
True. Yep.
Catholics tend to be more conservative.
Absolutely.
Muslims are super fucking conservative, right?
Yeah.
Muslims were conservative for a very long time, would vote Republican conservative for a very long time. A lot of the immigrants that the Republican Party demonizes today voted conservative for most of their portion of, their time in US history. And if you were going to say that anybody did anything to buy immigrants' votes, giving amnesty to all of the undocumented immigrants under Reagan would have been because illegal immigrants, undocumented immigrants, they can't vote.
Neither would the actual the amnesty undocumented people. They were still to become citizens to vote, but so that just is it's a point, but it's not actually a point that points to replacement theory being an actual thing.
Right.
It's definitely not a thing.
No.
And these people that are coming over undocumented, even if they became documented with work visas or work permits, still can't vote. People they still have to become citizens the same way. It just gives them the ability to like,
Have
function,
a job,
function
and
in society and actually
not
like
worry about getting
provide
deported
things.
because they got pulled over for rolling a stop sign. Like,
Right. Yeah. God forbid you have a traffic violation and you get deported. That seems pretty rough. So that's like kind of the 80s. That's Reagan. That's the one thing probably I think we could easily count on one hand the good things that Reagan's done. It has to be probably one of the best. One of the worst
and
is Star
even
Wars, but
then, he still
he didn't like do anything
he
like
shit the bed
crazy.
because it's like, all right, so the people who are here, cool, you're good, but then
But
like,
nobody else. Don't come. It didn't actually help anything. It was just what we would consider today to be like an empathetic. It's even such
Right.
just a gesture, really.
Yeah,
Like he didn't like change the way that they are documented or undocumented in our country. He just was like, if you were here, we're not gonna prosecute you, which is like you're not going to prosecute you anyway. We were just going to deport you. So it's almost like a meaningless gesture.
No,
When you
but I
break
mean,
it down,
he gave them legal status.
so he created documented.
Yeah, he gave
Immigrants.
that amnesty gave them legal status, and that's why it was funny. I actually had a person again from TikTok because that's my whole fucking life now these days. But somebody reached out to me and like, why were my Mexican immigrant parents so supportive of Reagan? And I'm like, probably because they were fucking dumb. But then he like told me that the era that they came in, and I'm like, oh no, it actually makes sense.
Right.
They were here as undocumented immigrants. Reagan gave them amnesty, gave them legal status. That'll buy you some loyalty, you know.
Right. Well, and so pre-Bill Clinton, it was actually not super common that we deported anybody, and it would take a pretty high level like crime in order to be deported, like felony level or like high misdemeanor crimes. And then Bill Clinton came along, and he's got such wisdom when it comes to social issues. Everything he's done to help people in this country turned out so good. Just ask black inmates currently. He knows what he's talking about, and he championed the IRA bill package, whatever you want to call it, in the
IIRIRA. Is that what it was?
It's not IRA. It's like IRA. Yeah. But they call it IRA to keep it short. Basically made basically anything that you've done that's even like as low level as like shoplifting a crime, which is like, okay, like whatever you committed a crime, that should be merit for you being deported or not. That should be decided upon. But he made a lot of those things like automatic. Like if you were caught doing any of this stuff, you're automatically deported. And it's really, really cut down on, well, I don't know. It just sort of cemented our current immigration policies, in which there are very little ways for you to become a U.S. Documented worker, not even a U.S. citizen. So it
amazes me how much Republicans hate the fucking Clintons.
Yeah, but they kind of did all the things that you would want to do right now.
They fucking, I mean, the Clintons are the most Republican Democrats since fucking Woodrow Wilson.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. I think that's exactly accurate. Other than you could say Abraham Lincoln, because he ran as a Republican.
No, well, the most Republican Democrats. I was saying they
But
ran as Democrats. Woodrow Wilson was a Democrat.
He was the most Democratic-styled Republican president, I guess. So it's I guess it's the little bit opposite of what you're saying. But I try to make it the same way.
I was saying Republicans today would beat off Woodrow Wilson
Yeah.
and the Clintons.
Well, right. If they didn't think that they were being beat off by small children, giving them their hermetic chrome, whatever.
Blood, because...
Yeah, that's a thing, apparently.
I just can't fucking do it with you people.
It's tough to get past that point.
It really is. Like you can't even have... And that's what I miss. There was a time... See, I enjoy debate, but when the other side is so incredibly fucking stupid... Right. So stupid.
So one of the other big things that IRA made illegal or like stopped was the ability of Mexican immigrants to sort of come and go
Yep.
through the natural like seasonal working that America needs to
Yep.
do things agriculturally, seasonally, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, around 50% of Mexican migrants, specifically Mexican, not old Latin America, but specifically Mexican migrants, 50% of them would
Return to
return
Mexico.
back to Mexico every fucking year. So these people were not like overwhelming our borders because they want to
No.
stay here forever. It's like
Well, like,
they
hey,
did a job. They were happy to do it. We got money out of it. We got services out of it. It was a sort of symbiosis. It's weird how things can work when you look at things a little bit beyond your own border and just think about like, what do we need as a country? What makes us work better as a people? When you're not so freaking afraid of every little ant that walks across the street, you can get shit done that's actually beneficial to everybody, businesses, private businesses, and citizens to keep price of goods cheaper, which is like
free fucking trade.
the biggest thing that Republicans are like, oh, we want to keep the goods of consumers low. It's like, well, how about you like actually enact policies that'll help private businesses keep costs low and provide more goods and keep your Taco Bell lobby open until 1 a.m. instead of closing at 6 p.m. Come on, people.
Yep.
The lobby must stay open. I don't want to stay in that drive-through line all the time. I know you're complaining about it too. Well, hire a documented work visa immigrant to run the cashier and keep that lobby open. That's what I'm saying.
Dude, and that's absolutely and so like this is one of the things going back to Clinton that I feel like the left and the right, everybody gives a hard time about NAFTA.
Yeah. Also, I just realized I didn't say Taco Bell specifically because of Mexican immigrants.
I was wondering.
It just occurred to me. I just have a local Taco Bell that's right next to where I live. That happened. That's their thing. Subway, whatever you want to.
Clearly, the only restaurant that documented immigrants will be working at is Taco Bell. See it. It's hard
right.
when you're on my. It's hard every once in a while. Shit slips, and you didn't mean it that way, but shit happens. No, like
it's not. Don't mean to come across that way. Obviously,
no, I get that. I do that shit all the time. Like NAFTA. Like I think NAFTA was a good thing. I think that there was some tweaks that should have been made to it as time went on. I definitely know that certain parts, especially up here in the Rust Belt, got hit particularly hard by exporting, jobs to Mexico.
Right. Globalization has its pros and cons, certainly.
But having that kind of free trade across borders with Canada and Mexico, our two closest neighbors, has a lot of pros, and that should come like labor as a commodity,
right?
And that should be part of that, and I believe that it's not even that I believe, the statistics show. I mean, how many crops rotted in the fields when we're like, well, fuck them immigrants, we're not letting them come across.
Yeah, what do you have in here? You said what's the
millions? I think I put tens of millions. I want to say it was like 13 million in 2017 was
$13 million was lost.
$13 million worth of crops rotted in the field, and then a few farmers quit producing at the level that they didn't feel that they could get labor for.
Sure.
After that, and
well, you talk about inflation, like all that stuff adds up. I'm sure that that's a minuscule amount if you want to talk about like the economics of that, like, but still, it's waste.
But we like our avocado toast, god damn it! I mean, and sure we need the Mexicans to pick the avocados. Wow, that see, I just did it.
We don't even grow avocados in the United States. I don't think.
We do in California.
California, small area.
Yeah. I mean, most of them do come avocados from Mexico.
Right. We've all seen the commercial if you watch the Super Bowl in the last couple of years.
So again, anyway.
Well, and I was looking this up, and so apparently, there was around 5 million undocumented immigrants in the United States around pre-IRA, and there's around 10 million undocumented people now.
Yep.
in 20 years, 30
Mm-hmm.
years. So obviously the legislation as a deterrent, which because that's basically what it was.
Mm-hmm.
It was trying to deter people from coming across, making
Mm-hmm.
it more difficult, and that's the Republican strategy as a deterrent.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't
Build the
work.
wall.
Yeah, it's.
Nobody
I
ever
think
gotten over, around, or under a wall before.
right. I think we've proven
Mhm.
that deterrence only goes so far. Obviously, like separating children from parents is a pretty fucking atrocious deterrent.
Mhm.
That's probably the most effective, but it's also the most inhumane thing you
Mhm.
could possibly do to people that are just trying to like come to your country to work for you and your businesses that live that that work survive there.
Mhm.
So like this whole strategy of deterrent, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but that's
Yeah.
it clearly has not worked if you
Uh-huh.
look at the actual numbers, which is the whole point. Like that's what we're trying to do here is what does the data tell us
Look at the stats,
about
because I am a stats man.
yeah, and that's if you don't care about stats, then what are you even talking about?
Oh my god. All right, so I've done a few videos on immigration recently.
We've already done one on
No, no, no.
immigration.
Yeah, no. I've personally done a few videos,
Recently,
TikTok,
yeah.
on
It's kind of hard not to be part of the conversation
right.
right now.
And surprisingly, have gone. I mean, not surprisingly, have gone over mixed, right? And I remember it was on YouTube, and it was the Salamabad, whatever the fuck his name was, terrorist they thought that they caught at the border that they didn't actually catch at the border, and
All
I
right,
was
I
just
feel like that equates my Taco Bell reference there.
Mhm,
You're-
it does.
so-
It absolutely does. I've tried to remember his name. I've said it multiple times. Cannot do it. But the point was he's not there. But half of that video was like, again, what the fuck are you so afraid? Like, what the fuck do you think's happening? Like, these aren't criminals coming across the border. These aren't
No.
drug dealers coming across the border. These aren't. And
The people are not. The people
Mhm.
that are trying to actually immigrate,
Mhm.
they're not the
Mhm.
criminals.
yeah. Well, so I just put all of those stats out there, and I'm like, here are the statistics for all of this. Like, every claim you've made, here's the statistics that show emphatically you are a fucking moron. And a guy commented, and he's like, okay, Mr. Stats Man, why
Okay,
don't you
Mr.
let them come live with you then? And I'm like,
Right? That's not
like-
the fucking point. Like, are
can
you
I
kidding
not be
me?
allowed to beat these people to death with a baseball bat? Because I feel like I should be allowed to do that.
I might give you a bit of a pass for somebody like that. It's like, why don't you just take in everybody who's less privileged than you
Mhm.
ever and across the entire planet to live with you specifically?
Mhm.
Why don't you do that?
How many of these motherfuckers
Yeah.
in Texas have a Mexican immigrant living on their couch because they're like, well, the government makes me do this, have an undocumented immigrant live on
Yeah.
my couch. Why is that a fucking argument?
It's not even in reality, much less like it is reality for when, Ron DeSantis sends a bus of immigrants to Martha's Vineyard.
And they fucking handle their shit.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, does anybody have homes that can like house these people temporarily because we don't have enough space in our like gym? It's like, oh yeah, we'll take them in for sure.
All these white privileged liberal motherfuckers are like, yeah, they can live in my guest house for a week while like
Right,
we
well, they're
figure out
figuring
where
their
they're
life out.
going.
Yeah,
Like,
because they just got flown from Florida to New York. Like,
oh my god, it's so dumb. It's so dumb, and that's what drives me up a goddamn wall. Because I'm like, here are the statistics, and these are what we should be making our decisions on. And if the statistics backed up what you said, I would be on your
right,
side.
where's the FBI crime statistics that show that immigrants or undocumented people are committing more crimes than citizens and are like more than on average drug dealers or like terrorists or like trying to do terroristic type things? There's no statistics out there that prove that.
No,
It's insane.
no. There's statistics out there that prove the opposite.
Well, okay, yeah.
It's not even that
Yeah.
it's not like the data is inconclusive at this point.
Sure. No, you're right.
Like, we fucking know. We know the answers. And then we give you the answers, and these dumb motherfuckers are like, yeah, well, do you live in Texas? And I'm like, no, but I have access to the goddamn internet and can read above a 3rd grade level.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, this is why it's such a popular issue for the Republicans, because they can just keep saying the same thing over and over and over and over and over again while doing nothing, while having the truth be the exact opposite of what they're saying, and it will still be the number one issue for their constituents. I have nothing to say other than that's just pure ignorance. I don't want to say you're an idiot or stupid, but like, just do.
But you are. But
just,
you
like,
are.
Look
You
beyond like, oh, there's like millions of people. Okay, why are they here? What are they doing? Like, take your thought process one step beyond.
Also, what, 10 or 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States?
Out of
We've got
340,
yeah,
right.
30, 40 million people.
You're still talking about single digits of like,
Like, numbers matter. God, we really intended this to be a more well-balanced fucking episode. I
mean,
promise.
I don't know. As I was coming up here, I was like, I don't know. I can't
No.
do like the thing that we like to do and like actually talk about like what caused this, what are the idiots saying, and then like how do we actually fix it. But it's so.
All right, I just, since we're so off script, so we put together just an outline for these.
That's 3 pages long, man.
Yeah, a 3-page long. We do
single
this for
single space, by the way, not double space.
Yep, 3 pages, single space. We do this for all of these episodes, and Taylor put in most of the work on originally outlining this one, and he had number 4 bullet point here, the real issues we face on border immigration. Like, he was really trying, I promise. The number of migrants, which isn't a fucking problem.
It is an actual problem. It's just not a problem in the way that it's been portrayed. The problem is that we don't have the physical infrastructure to like actually help these people in the numbers of which they're arriving in currently. There is actual strain being put upon states to provide basic necessities for like being an undocumented person in the United States, in which you cannot like go get a job or go get an apartment or go live a life. We have to keep you. And like, they're not able to do that because there are so many people that are wanting to come to the United States. It's not a bad problem to have, but it's a good problem because we need those people.
It's not even an infrastructure problem.
Oh,
it's a bureaucracy, red tape, logistics problem.
So right, yeah, we could technically provide the actual infrastructure to host everybody, but the political will and the political ability to make that happen isn't currently there. So in that sense, that's what I'm saying. Currently it is a problem because not enough funding is being put towards helping these people integrate into the United States. And if you're a Republican, that sentence was scary as hell. But if you're a rational person who understands that there are extreme benefits and the American, society as we know it has a very strong direct need for more people to be here working for us.
Okay, so not to get on replacement theory stuff.
That is, it literally is replacement theory in a sense, not in the sense that it's like this nefarious like goal of Democrats to like replace them as voters. It's that Americans are replacing themselves at a rate that is below the sustainable rate of less than 2 kids per
2.1.
couple.
2.1.
I think we're at 1.7.
You got to get that extra toe out of there.
I think we're at 1.
No. 2.1 is the replacement rate.
We're at 1.7 right
We're
now.
at 1.6.
1.6. Yeah.
Yep.
We are below replacement level. So literally, if we want to continue growing as a society, we must bring in more people.
We want to maintain as a society, not even grow.
Right. No.
Maintain.
We're below maintaining.
2.1.
But if we want to sustain the capitalist system that requires infinite growth in order to be successful, we're on a path for absolute disaster right now. So
yes. And that's the answer. It's either making Americans have more kids, which you know what? I don't have any kids because fuck them things. They're expensive.
One of my solutions is us for we could have babies at twice the rate that we have them right now. 20 years ago, It's a little bit challenging because it's a lot more work physically making those babies. It's happy work, but it's still a lot of work. And then the whole like figuring out how to time travel and to have to tell people to have those babies. It's a little bit tough.
Yeah,
to
you gotta go back in time
to
and
have
let them
that
know.
solution
Let them
be a
know that
reality.
I need some brothers and sisters up in here,
Right.
so we can pay your social security check.
And it's not even that America has made it financially difficult to have children, but because
Financially fucking impossible.
yes, and that's not even the issue because this is just an issue across Western society as a whole. Europe has this issue, Japan has this issue, Korea is absolutely and utterly fucked with their demographics.
Unfucked.
They are exactly. So like this is not just like a specifically like I guess all those countries are capitalistic countries, so in that sense they are overly fucked. And if they were not relying upon infinite growth to determine their success, but like this is a Western phenomenon, or it's a worldwide phenomenon. India is now in 2023 they became the most populous country.
Oh, they surpassed China.
They surpassed China, but they did it with a replacement rate below China.
Okay, I know nothing about this whatsoever, so I'm gonna speak
I just did a lot of research.
completely out of my ass. But I feel like China had like a skyrocketing problem of like too many kids, right?
They had too many kids too fast.
Too many kids too fast.
Yeah.
So then they overcorrected.
And they said one child policy.
One child policy, and then they're like chucking their kids out in the woods and shit. and then India is just like fuck how you want, I guess. And then so is there an average intersection there is what I'm wondering as far as that like replacement rate below China, because China's probably well below it now, but they were so far above it for so long.
I don't know when their like replacement like number actually crossed, but I do know that in 2023 India did become more populous.
Yeah, no, and I believe you. I didn't know that, but I absolutely
I'm
believe
trusting
that.
MSNBC on this one.
No, I 100%. India's been fucking popping them out like rabbits
Right.
lately, but you said that the replacement rate they
Yeah,
did
no, and they
with
said
less,
in their piece, which
and I'm
I hate
wondering
to
at
use
what point China's what point in time China's replacement rate was used, because if you used it today, I'd absolutely believe that, because they cut way the fuck back. But if you did it from 20 years ago and adjusted for their because obviously their population hasn't died off like at
no, they're reaching a point that's similar to the United States in that they're aging out. The United States is now like 25-ish% of people that are beyond working age or generally working age, which is like 2 to 2.5 times above what it was 40 years ago, and what it has been in the United States past, which is why we've been so successful as a country, is because we've just kept growing at a sustainable rate, and now we're not doing that, which is
Japan also is having huge issues
Japan
with
Japan
that.
is going to be like 2/3 of their population in a couple decades of what they are now. So if you look, and this is not specifically related to the American immigration crisis, but like demographics, I feel like plays a really big role in what we should be using to make decisions and how we deal with this. A lot of Western countries are going to be in a really tough position, and what people thought, like we're just going to keep doubling our population and we're going to be like 10 billion people in how many years, we may not even make it to 10 billion because we're
God.
not in a
People
sense
suck,
we
man.
have the ability to house and feed 10 billion people in a way that's sustainable. That's a different question, but in our current practices we have a way to do it. It just becomes a little bit more expensive, but we are in a big problem. We are in a big deficit of people in the United States. And so I don't understand the short-sightedness of, well, okay, I understand why Republicans don't have that sight, but I don't know why Democrats aren't talking about this more often. When you talk about like what should we be doing about immigration and having an actual solution, it's like why is this not a discussion point? The numbers today are bad, really, really, really bad. Much less if you even just look at the number of jobless, the number of job slots available, much less the actual demographic statistics. Like those two factors alone should be a fucking like DEFCON one, like big fucking deal.
And immigration is literally the like it's a key turn solution.
Right. Yeah. People want to come here on their own volition. We don't even have to pay them to come here.
No, we can be like, hey, we will not put you in prison or send you back to where you came from. And if you pay taxes, if you pay us,
and don't commit too many crimes or
Yeah.
do, like more crimes than normal citizens do,
we will let you stay here and
Contribute.
do labor.
Right.
Yeah. Like and they're willing to do that, and we're like, no, build a wall, and
Build a wall, send them back. We're going to spend our own money to stop them from coming, and we're going to spend our own money that we could have been spent helping in American infrastructure to send them back. We're going to spend tens and hundreds of billions of dollars to make it harder for us to exist in 20 years.
So
That's what we're
dumb.
doing right now.
So fucking dumb. All right.
But let's talk about the
Yeah.
Republican issues, because
So
that's
that,
what we're
that,
here to
that
talk
was one of
about.
them. The number of them. So the number of them
Yes.
is clearly not a problem. We are short of people. We're
Yeah.
running a little short of
Right.
people. Those people can fix that problem for us.
Right. Thank you for coming here.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the first one. And then we've got they're the criminals, and we talked about this a little bit. But I just want to
They're sending their rapists and murderers and drug dealers. Lay it down for us. How is that so absolutely imagined in their brains that it has no place in reality?
Well, we talked about how they commit crime at half the rate.
Right.
Like if you average it out, natural or native born citizens versus immigrants and non-documented immigrants, legal and undocumented immigrants, it's half the rate. Half.
Yeah, I mean, why hasn't there been a single Democrat who has gone on MSNBC or like on the floor of the House
But
or
like,
Senate?
why are all these fucking citizens committing crimes? We need to deport them and replace them with undocumented immigrants.
Come on, that's actual replacement theory.
If they want
No,
it, let's give
but-
it to them.
But really, if we're talking, we always talk about messaging, right? Like,
no, and they
what are
fucking
we
suck
talking
at
about?
it.
What are we not talking about?
Fucking suck at it. But we covered that. But then there's the drugs, and that's
the
one.
drugs.
I got this in the comments of that same video. Well, fentanyl. You're gonna tell me that there's no fentanyl in the world? Fentanyl doesn't exist. There isn't fentanyl coming across the Mexican border. I heard of fentanyl, and fentanyl's a real goddamn thing. Fentanyl.
That's right. I mean, that's what my parents, who they live in South Carolina now, but I was talking to my mom, who's like fairly like actual liberal person who just like very much watches a lot of Fox News, and like if you talk to her about like people have rights or should have rights to like healthcare, she'd be like, yeah, I agree with you. But then she says like, oh, all the fentanyl coming across, we need to worry about immigration. I'm like, the propaganda has laid in a little bit.
How dumb do you need to be to think that an undocumented immigrant is importing fentanyl?
They don't think about that. It's not even.
Just look at this business standpoint wise. All right, okay. I am a fentanyl
You're running
importer.
the cartel, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm running a cartel. I am importing fentanyl. I need to get some across the border.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send it with a dude that I'm never gonna see again.
Right. That's like, yeah.
Who can only do a one-way trip. Like that's my business
The one-way
strategy.
trip is fine because like they just want it to get into the United States, but
right, but I need him to come back and bring more in.
well, you need somebody to continue to bring it across.
Exactly. And trying to find more people, like, because then you still got to link up with these people, right?
Yeah, right. You still have to make it like a toss, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Across the border.
Just fucking chuck it over the fence. The wall. I'm sorry.
Honestly, like, just use a fucking drone. Like, if
They do. They fucking do.
Like,
which, again, a wall is not going to stop.
no, it's only so tall.
But again, we're statistics people.
Yes, we are.
And if the undocumented immigrants were just lugging in
Right.
all of this goddamn
And
fentanyl,
they're hauling it on their backs.
yeah,
all of
Santa
them, right?
Claus for the inner city. That was wrong. I shouldn't have said
Okay,
that.
I kind of like the line though. It's terrible, but it's visual.
It is visual. It's very Reagan in the 80s type of
Yeah, it really was. Love to hate him.
love to hate him. We
Hate
get
to
to get
love
back to hating him here again. Now they're talking about drugs coming from
All
Mexico.
right, so what are the actual statistics about fentanyl coming into the United States?
86% of people caught smuggling fentanyl across the U.S. border were U.S. citizens. 86%.
Yeah, you'd think that like Republicans would mention that one time that they're proliferating on just or pontificating, sorry,
Mhm.
that they're just pontificating in front of the press. They'd be say,
Mhm.
we know for a fact that 90% of fentanyl is being brought across the border by migrants.
Mm-hmm. But they can't
But they can't
because it's not
because
real.
it's not in
And
reality.
and they say stuff that's not real all the time, and they're not even willing to go that far off
But they
script.
just can't even base any of their
Mhm.
statements on fact. I was doing so much research into this. I could not find factual statements by Republicans or just anybody who's like the Biden administration sucks at the border policing. I'm like, what's the thing that they're doing? What are they doing or not doing?
Guess what? This one gets way worse. I mean, well, better, worse. It gets way worse for the Republican narrative or the anti-immigration narrative on this. 90% of all fentanyl seized is seized at ports of entry.
So like border
Legal
crossing point.
border crossings.
Right.
It's not the
San
people
Diego,
crossing
Tijuana, Rio Grande.
and this is so prolific. Like people who smuggle drugs across the border prefer to smuggle them through ports of entry because you have like a 91% chance of getting your contraband through a port of entry, where if you are going through legal immigration routes, it's if they get caught, they are guaranteed to get searched, right?
Sure.
Guaranteed to get searched, which is why they're doing it with U.S. citizens, because they're less likely to get searched. It's why they're doing it at port of entries, because they're less likely to get searched.
And
The risk factor goes up so much if you try to sneak it across the border, which is why they don't try to like sneak it across the border in way they bring it in, quote unquote, legally, and just hope they don't get caught while they're doing it, because they generally don't.
Well, right. I have a statistic here as an actual problem for the border. What I would consider to be based in reality problem. You know, something that I can substantiate and then discuss. An actual problem is drugs and weapons crossing the border. And as it stands, only 2% of non-commercial vehicles get searched or inspected at the border, at ports of crossing, and only 14% of trailer trucks get crossed while going through those points of entry. So you're telling me that they're not going to go in those statistics and be like, oh, I've got like a 90% chance of getting this shit through, if not a 98% chance of like hiding it fairly well in my like truck bed and putting some peanuts over it or whatever the fuck Clint Eastwood put in the back of his truck to get the drug sniffing dogs to not sniff his truck when he was the mule. Like that's an actual problem that we can actually help fix, and we can actually put money towards that would stop the thing that the Republicans are so fucking scared of, which is fair to be scared of fentanyl, be scared of drugs, be scared of all these things that are harmful to the United States.
But don't also.
But yes, like if you're going to be scared of something, like at least base it in reality. Like talk about like how it's actually being brought here and who's using it and why they're using it. That's a discussion for another day, but like
it is, and I'll touch on that just a tad in this, but closing the ports of entry has actually increased fentanyl smuggling across the border, because fentanyl is highly concentrated. You need less of it, to sell the same amount. According to people who do drugs. I don't know. I don't give a shit. But
not a chemist or a drug user expert.
But it's high. I mean, it's like, oh, you touch it and you die. Apparently, in amounts of fentanyl. I don't know. But you need less of it. It's highly concentrated. So when they closed the ports of entry, so you were funneled more through fewer ports of entry.
Just because a higher strain, right, on those entry points.
they started being like, all right, it's harder to get our people back through and back. It's harder to get the drugs through and back because they're choking down on this. We will start shipping through the stuff that's easier to get through because we need less of it to sell, like for volume wise. It increased, and this happened a lot during COVID because we really clamped down on immigration during COVID.
Sure.
For some
Right,
obvious
which
reasons, for some
you could
propaganda.
argue as to why Trump's numbers were so fucking low, and you
Mhm.
could also argue that the reason why we've had so much more increased immigration now is not necessarily because of Biden,
It was
because
just
it's a rebound.
yeah,
It's like a stock market, you know, when you have a number that's a reaction,
Mhm.
it's the rebound reaction, and it's not even that crazy of a reaction considering the crazy decrease that was 2020 and 2021.
Also, I sent you this video, and I wanted to make this point.
Yeah, so that was a good video.
It's great. So
Good source.
this was from a former Border Patrol agent, who worked Border Patrol in the 90s. And like the big scary numbers that they're giving you for apprehensions or encounters
Encounters, that was the big
at the
word.
border. They combined Customs and Border Patrol with or Customs and Border Protection with Border Patrol numbers.
Yeah,
So
it's like it is kind of confusing because it's all under the helm of CBP. So I get why somebody make that like incorrect distinction, but if you're a representative of the United States federal government, probably you shouldn't be making that
Right.
incorrect distinction.
And the reason it's an incorrect distinction is because if you come through a legal port of entry and be like, hey, I want admittance into the United States, and you are given or denied that admittance at that legal port of entry, like they're counting that as the same type of encounter as they are
Like a
counting
Border Patrol riding around in his Jeep all day,
Yeah,
trying to
wrestle somebody out of the Rio Grande, like that.
Right.
That's the same. That's what they're combining those numbers, and the numbers. So for the Border Patrol agents, per Border Patrol agent, that was apprehending people doing irregular crossings, is what they call them. If you don't come through a legal port of
Sure.
entry,
Yeah.
is less than half of what it was in the 90s, less than half of what it was 30 years ago.
Right.
She was saying, I think it was like 24 apprehensions per border agent
Yep.
per month in the 90s, and it's 10 today.
Yeah.
And so like they're adding on the numbers of people who are trying to enter legally.
Well,
they're
right.
coming
They're
to
purposely inflating the numbers to seem like
Mhm.
it's crazy. Which, to be fair, there is more people crossing the border now than there was 5 years ago and 10 years ago. Partly because those numbers have been increasing for the past 3 decades, and this is just sort of the natural progression of that. But also because there was a huge decrease in immigration during COVID. Understandably so. So this is the rebound, and it just so happens there's a different president. I don't have any illusions in thinking that if Trump was president right now, there would be the same, maybe not the exact same, because people would view him as like fucking crazy, and they might take away their children, which Biden is not going to do. So like that as a deterrent, like I said, is probably the most effective, but like the most inhumane thing you could do. Surely there would be slightly less immigration, but not a huge amount. Great less in immigration
No.
than what
I mean,
we're seeing
we've
now.
talked about this before. Obama deported more people than anybody in fucking history.
Right.
So even Trump couldn't do the fucking anti-immigration thing better than a Democrat. I mean,
no.
not that we're proud of that, but
It's yeah.
Obama.
To be fair, Biden.
Biden, Jesus Christ.
Honestly, though, that's kind of a good combination of that presidency. Obama did attempt to pass immigration reform, just the same as George W. Bush did, and kind of it got spoiled by some, Republicans,
Mitch McConnell's of the world.
Yeah, so like he did try to do comprehensive change, to a certain extent, but it was not allowed to pass.
Yeah. And that is true. But he still deported.
But sort of George W. Bush. I mean,
Yeah.
like they both tried and they
They
both
both
failed.
basically tried to pass the same immigration policy.
Right. Yeah. Obama actually was trying to pass his right around like 2014, 2015, right around when, Breitbart and Steve Bannon and Steve Larson were like
Mm-hmm.
going crazy on this immigration, just like pounding and pounding. That's kind of when they started.
Mm-hmm.
And they were so close to signing the bill that they had to like ramp up their operations in DC like to an insane amount.
No.
Um, Marco Rubio, like he was like pro the bill, like a
Mm-hmm.
Republican, a staunch Republican of Florida was like, yes, this is a good immigration bill.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you have these fucking weird MAGA people who are like, nah, that's not good. That's not good enough. No immigration. They're all bad people. And that's where we are today. It's the
Yep.
same shit. It has no basis in reality.
Mm-hmm.
And we could have fixed it, but
Mm-hmm.
here we are. We're still talking about it.
Yep. All right, let's cover a couple other things just to fucking dispel some myths that are always the hot button topics. Is they don't pay any taxes.
Right?
And,
Yeah.
I mean, they do.
They do.
They
Not only by spending money,
Mhm.
but they do. Undocumented workers can pay federal income tax.
Absolutely. There's
Somehow.
a whole there's a whole file form on irs.gov that you don't have to have a social security number. You don't have to give basically any personal information, and you can pay income tax.
Yeah.
And many of them do because remember who caught Al Capone?
IRS, baby.
IRS.
I was watching a video. There was like a dude in San Diego who
Mhm.
paid his federal income tax, state and federal income tax for over a decade, but he still was not allowed like a green card or whatever.
Mhm. It happens all the time because that's the thing is like if you don't want to get caught for doing something, which goes back to why they commit less crime, right?
Yeah, right.
Like if like our repercussions for doing crime
Like
are
speeding or like shoplifting, like we're not going to be deported. We're not going to
Right.
be removed from our families.
we have to maybe pay a fine or something,
Yeah.
maybe spend a few days in jail. They could have their whole life taken away from them and be shipped back to the hellhole that they have tried to escape from by coming to America.
Mhm.
Uh, like you're not going to go through all of that effort and then just commit crime willy nilly because fuck America or something. I don't understand. But like that's why they don't commit crime at that level. The same reason that they do tend to pay taxes is because if you're going to get caught by somebody in the United States, it's going to be the fucking IRS. Like the IRS.
Right. Unless you're going to live 100% off the grid,
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to have a bank account or like have direct deposit or like
Mm-hmm.
do the things that we would normally expect you would do,
Mm-hmm.
like there's no way that you're not going to get caught.
Mm-hmm. So they do pay taxes, and the IRS offers an avenue for them to do that, without a social security card, without getting it traced back to them where they
Right,
can
and
be.
they will never receive a dime of benefits
No,
from that work.
not a single dime, which is what another fucking thing. They get free stuff. They get all the 7 years tax free. Have you heard that one for like in
No,
America or
I
in
haven't.
Minnesota and shit?
I've just heard like benefits.
Oh my
Nobody
God.
can tell me what those benefits are.
No.
But, like they're receiving like
Mhm.
maybe like a credit card or something, and like a gift
And
card,
the Obama phone.
right? Or the Obama phone, whatever. Like
They don't get shit. Let's
No.
just spell that right now.
You
They
could-
don't get shit. Prove me the fuck wrong.
right. There's been like news agencies across the country that have been trying to do story after story of like, can we prove what are they receiving? The most that they're receiving is emergency health care, and their children get to go to school.
Yep. No, those are absolutely the only two things. Is like you can't turn somebody away at the ER, which oh my God, don't
Yeah.
let them die in the street. Okay.
Right, yeah.
And their kids get to go to school, which if you've got a problem with that, I will personally slap
like,
you.
It's an actual problem because it overwhelms teachers and it disrupts classrooms.
It's
and
not.
okay, but if you're gonna look at that specific issue, it's not ideal. Like it's not like you would not say like I'm gonna put a kid into a classroom that only speaks Spanish or whatever whatever language they're coming from, and they're only teaching in English. Like that's not an ideal situation. In that sense, I mean, it's not. It's
Sure.
not great.
There's some obstacles, but that's going to be any immigrant community.
No,
Whether
but that's what I'm saying.
there's
We're not optimizing, or we're not even like enabling them to be successful by putting them in school. So like, that's what I mean. Not by them learning.
Right.
Obviously, I want them to learn and be better people.
But yeah, so absolutely. And they don't get free stuff.
No,
but they do pay into the system.
Right. They pay into the system billions and billions of dollars every year. And that's with them being undocumented. Imagine
if we documented them, then they'd have to pay even more.
Yeah.
So again, like you want them to pay taxes, give them fucking paperwork.
Give
so they
them
can
a work permit so they can do the same job that they're doing currently, but pay taxes that are what was mandated by the state.
You know, and again, this is how off script we are. So the next point I had on this whole list was, we're being overrun. Our infrastructure can't handle it. They took our gerbs. We're taking our gerbs. Goddamn aliens from the future.
That's right. They're taking our jobs. Gonna get back to the pile. Love that episode.
It's a great episode. And so long ago now,
that was like high school.
You
for
think
us,
about that. So this
for
is
us.
how long this has been.
South Park, by the way, in case you didn't get that reference. Not for everybody,
but. So you put in here, there's about 9 million open jobs.
Yes.
And a 3.5% unemployment rate.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I was guessing on the unemployment rate.
Oh, that sounds about right. But I mean, like, so 9 million open jobs. But here's the thing: is there is not a single statistic
3.7.
anywhere.
That was pretty close.
Anywhere that you can find that will corroborate the fact that migrants take jobs from native-born citizens, or undocumented immigrants take jobs from legal immigrants or citizens.
Like if you're trying to get in on the fields in Central Valley in California, and you're like this white guy from San Bernardino is like, I really think my future is in agriculture and picking crops for the rest of my life. You might have a point.
They might take your job.
They might take your job.
Might take your job.
But if you're the rest of America, which is about 99.999% of America,
I think you missed a few nines there.
Yeah, I don't have another hour to spend time.
No, but here's the thing: is it's not even that they don't take our jobs; it's that they actually increase jobs. Like,
right,
available jobs go up wherever immigrant communities come in because they spend money. Immigrants create businesses.
Yeah, it's almost like bringing more people and more dollars and more economic productivity to an area helps things.
Absolutely does.
I feel like people talk about that, sometimes, but doesn't seem ever to come up about this topic.
And immigrants create new businesses at a rate higher than natural-born citizens.
Isn't it like the Forbes 500, like 50% is either of those companies were either created by immigrants or first generation immigrants? Like over half of Forbes 500 people.
Yep.
Like, this is big America. This is big business. This is like what America is all about, for better or for worse.
Yep.
We get lots of discussion about better or discussion about being worse. But if you're pro what America is today, you should be pro immigrants.
They create jobs. They literally create jobs.
There's no way. There's this way, that, or about it. Like it literally is the actual case.
So they aren't taking your jobs. They are paying taxes. They aren't bringing in drugs. They aren't committing crime. And especially if you're gonna be like, oh well, they're being here illegally is a crime. Go fuck yourself. It's like
it's like that's like a semantic.
Kick yourself in the fucking nuts. So it's
right, and this is coming at a time where Republican governors are rolling back child labor laws in order to get more children into the workforce to fill factory jobs. Like
McDonald's needs somebody to flip them burgers. God damn it!
We've heard the stories about kids being literally killed in the workplace at factories from doing jobs at like 10 o'clock at night when they should be sleeping to go to school the next day. But no, they get to work instead, and then some of them die. This is obviously that's a very anecdotal, tiny percentage,
It
but
is.
but
But like
it's still a thing. It's still relevant in a way that we don't need children in America. It's not sustainable to have our future
Mm-mm.
be working these jobs. What is sustainable is having them get a better education or try to even match the rest of the first world
Yeah.
educational standards.
We're
We are
not
so far
keeping up
behind.
on the
Yes.
first world level.
But you want them to go to work instead of doing that, doing better in school. Like all these Republicans are like, oh, we need better education. Well, this is what we're talking about. Not having them work those jobs when they're 14 years old. That's a good first step.
Yeah.
And we have people that are of working age that they've decided they will make the trek here for free to the American dime. There's no American dollar being spent bringing them to filling that spot. They're willing to do that. And they're happy to do that. They're happy to pay taxes. They're happy to be a functioning member of society. But we've deemed them illegal because we have made this issue politicized to an extent where there's no hope in our current climate to make a change.
No.
And it's mostly a Republican issue, Republican fault. I gotta say that
It really is. It really is. Like they bring these issues to the table. They don't bring any real solutions. Building a wall is not a fucking solution. If that's your solution,
building a wall and just deporting more people,
it's not a solution.
How is that solving? That's like treating a Band-Aid.
It's not even.
Not like, oh, maybe I have an infection. No, just put a Band-Aid on it. Just put a new bandage on it.
No.
Don't treat the infection. People immigrating to the United States, it's not an infection. It's just an analogy.
Yeah. Again, once again, look at you. You're on a roll today.
Hey, at least I caught it immediately this time.
But no, it's true. It is. You're a fucking moron if you think that building a wall or deporting people is the solution to this problem.
Deterring people is not going to solve the problem.
Even on it, like you wouldn't even address the solution that you hope to by keeping these people out. You would not. You will not do that. You will not.
Yeah. There's no way you're going to keep millions of people, hundreds of thousands of people a month out. How? It's not physically possible.
No, it's not.
Unless you literally build like the wall from World War Z, where Israel kept out all the zombies.
And guess what? That didn't work
they
either.
Still got in. Obviously, it's a fucking movie. But unless you spend literally trillions of dollars building a 100-foot concrete wall.
Because guess what's on both sides of the Mexican border?
Water.
Yeah. Guess what? Guess what flies through the air?
Airplanes. And guess where most immigrants come through? The ports of entry that are legal.
Not to mention, Mexicans are hard workers. They will dig a hole. I've seen them do it.
Yeah, we all know from Fast and Furious, those cartels, they'll dig holes for you to drive those cars through.
Absolutely. Fast and Furious is the most accurate movie I've ever seen, too. So
it really is. Vin Diesel's got it going down. Family will solve all of our problems. We've talked. I think we've touched on pretty much every just really shitty talking point.
I just want these people to know how dumb we all think they are.
And that's kind of the purpose of this, because it's been pushed so hard in by mainstream media, to the extent, and I was watching some stuff trying to research for this. MSNBC is now saying that Republicans are allowing fentanyl immigrants to flood the border because they won't sign Biden's immigration bill, which is the dumbest thing they could ever fucking say. Are you kidding me? That's not reality.
Overton window moment here, people. Overton window moment.
Yeah, we need to have
fucking here
an alarm that goes off every time that fucking Democrats cede ground. Cede reality is what it is. Cede reality to conservatives. That's the Overton window, and we're losing it. We're losing it. And it's not even Biden's bill specifically. It's the entire machine.
Yeah.
Because Biden's bill is actually, we don't know everything about it yet because they haven't even released the text to goddamn senators who are going to vote on it. But it doesn't seem like it's actually going to help immigration all that much.
Also, the bill that they have produced has been the most quote-unquote comprehensive immigration bill in history. The
The-
most
the-
restrictive that the Democrats have introduced, that the Republican senators have been like, this is the best we could have possibly have hoped for. They're jerking off in the corner to this fucking bill.
Some of them
And
are.
they're telling the goddamn Congress members of the Republican Party to vote for it. And they're like, no.
Well, that's
because-
partially true. Donald Trump and Mike Johnson are now telling them to not vote for it because they don't want to give Biden a semblance of a win that's not based in reality, but that looks like a win to people. It's a political game, as it always has been, as Republicans have always held immigration and immigrants hostage for political gain. I think that's the only conclusion. If you look at our first immigration episode, and then you also combine that with this episode, that's the only conclusion that I can draw. I consider myself a fairly logical, reasonable person. I don't see another way.
That's literally
about it.
what Trump has basically come out and said is don't vote for this because we don't want to give Biden a win. So this would be a win in the eyes of apparently Republicans or the American public,
Right.
which I think I'm not a big fan of the bill.
Apparently,
personally.
like 60% of America thinks that immigration is a problem.
I mean, our
Because
immigration policy is
because
a
it's
problem,
been jackhammered in our freaking heads that it's a problem. But like, Biden has sort of been circumventing, and this is why, what's Secretary Mayorkas? What's his name? Mayorkas, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, sure, that sounds
He's
right.
being impeached for breaking the law. The law that he's been breaking has essentially been creating a parole program for undocumented workers to work in the United States without a green card because they're here, and the process to get them through the legal system, the judicial system, takes so freaking long, partly because of the backlog, because of Trump, but partly just because our judicial system has been
fucking joke.
has been a joke and has been like backlogged for a decade. So what are they going to do? Just sit there in a government facility sitting on their butts, or
And
will they
also, it's
work?
expensive to prosecute people, and it's expensive to
Yeah.
deport people. So, like, just if you give them legal immigration status, then we can track them. We can make them pay taxes. If they
Right.
do something illegal, we've got them on record, and we can deport them if
Right.
that's what we
It's-
want to
it's-
do.
It's not that hard. It's literally like if you want to become a worker in the United States that's not a citizen, we can put you on like a parole type program where like if you step out of line, you're fucked. You're gone.
Yeah.
Like it's not that hard, people. It's that simple. That's a little bit fucked up because parole is kind of like a weird like
Probation.
situation.
You can be on a probationary period for
Probation,
anything,
right,
right?
yeah.
A new job probationary period. You're a new resident of the United States. You're on a probationary
Sure.
period.
Yeah.
And you do something so you can have stricter. If we want to apply stricter regulations, we can do that. But then we have all of the documentation we need.
Right. We know
and-
who you are, where you're from, and where you're working, who's your family. We know everything that we know about U.S. citizens at that point. It's
then they
it's
can
an
pay
actual
taxes.
right. It's an actual solution to the problem that we're having today because people are not going to stop coming because if they have any semblance of intellect, which a lot of people are, they're regular people just like Americans. They're not any less smart or any less, they're just potentially less educated, which considering most Americans
and less
it's
privileged.
really not
like
even
they've had
they're
a
less privileged.
shitty situation, which is why that they're trying to come here.
And even if they don't have a shitty like life that they're leaving, it doesn't like mean that they shouldn't have the opportunity to come and work here if that's what they want to do. If there's an availability of jobs, of which we do have currently, when we get to the point where there's less than 1 million open job slots and like our unemployment is still at like under 5%, then we can have a conversation about actual immigration control. But we are
so far from that,
miles away from that being.
It's not
like,
something that's going to happen in any of our lifetimes, folks.
I mean, yeah, if we're being pessimistic,
I'm
I'm a glass half open kind of guy.
I mean,
and,
even if we started allowing,
a beer glass half. half
even if
open.
we started allowing relatively loose immigration policy, we're still so far below, capitalism replacement value of birth rate. you're not going to get to that point in immigration anytime, because you got to remember that every time you allow in so many immigrants, you are also creating jobs, you're creating economic prosperity.
Sure. Yeah.
That's so they're off. Every statistic says that they offset all of the jobs that they take, right?
True.
And
True.
obviously there's going to be some
Leveling
cross
out at
section
some
where that
point,
levels
right?
off, but it's not even like we fill just the current jobs we have.
Right. We're literally
Vacancy.
creating new communities when you're bringing in that many
So
people, or just like people in general.
so
So,
it's
yeah.
it's really the solution, and again, we could revisit it if it actually becomes a problem at some point. I don't see that happening in any of our
That's a fair
lifetimes.
point. Like if you want to talk about exponential growth and just like
Mhm.
infinite growth, right? That's like
Mhm.
the capitalist mantra.
Yeah.
Like theoretically, if you bring in more people and
Mm.
more people do things,
Mhm.
then there will never be people not doing
Doing
enough
things.
things.
Mhm.
Like if you continue
Yep.
to bring in more people,
Mhm.
um,
So,
yeah, I mean, yeah,
and then the only other thing, bitching about drugs and immigration obviously has nothing to do. They're two completely separate things. But
right.
decriminalize fucking drugs, and that problem goes away. I've always been a big fan, and we should do maybe a different episode on this altogether on the drug problem in America and the
Sure.
war on drugs. But
The war on drugs.
I would say giving drugs away for free in clinics would solve our problems.
I am not in a position to argue against that, but I know that
Sounds radical.
drug centers where they administer drugs that you bring in have shown to help people get out of that spiral and have reduced drug deaths in those
Yep.
areas. So I would not be somebody who's initially against something like that.
All right. Well, let's shelve that for another topic, because that is a whole different topic from
Right.
immigration.
And
But
you guys have stuck around long enough
oh
for
my
us
god,
today.
yeah, an hour and a half now. But decriminalizing drugs would solve the problem of drugs coming across the border, or at least go a long ways towards doing that. For a number of obvious reasons. Obviously, we create our demand by making them illegal, the same way that we created
Right.
demand for alcohol by making alcohol illegal in illegal situations where they were smuggling it in, again,
Well,
from Mexico and
And
Canada.
in addition, the United States remains an economic bastion for North and South America. It's not the only one, but it remains across the world the largest and brightest star, rightfully so or not.
Mhm.
It at least appears to be still remaining the economic powerhouse, and people are always going to want to come here regardless. And we have a need for them. So until we satiate that
Mm.
need, let's bring them in.
And we're ready to fight Abbott at any moment.
Yeah, I don't know about Civil War bullshit. That's just fake news, like literal, like conspiracy level bullshit.
That'd be another fun episode. Just the hypothetical of what would a civil war look like, because it's so
let's,
fucking dumb.
let's make that episode when the Civil War movie comes out this year.
Okay, good. Yeah, because it is so fucking dumb. Like, it is so fucking
it's
dumb.
really
Like
bad.
okay. Anyway, we'll save that for another day. Thank you guys. If you've
Yeah.
stuck it out this far, you are
As usual, like you're a true fan.
yeah, and we appreciate the fuck out of you guys.
And we really love to hear from you. If you listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, like please give us a rate. Like we really appreciate. We have like a 4.9 rating on Apple Podcasts right now, which is it's really great. But we need more people rating to help keep that thing.
Keep that up. Yeah, and you can comment on YouTube.
Yes.
Some of you guys have been doing that, just supporting us and everything. But if there's stuff you want to hear about, please let us know.
Yeah, leave a comment. We'd love to respond to people that aren't batshit insane on our YouTube channel. And obviously, we're still rolling out new merch all the time. We are still working on a membership program.
Yep.
Any day now.
Yeah, I know we keep saying it. It'll get there eventually. We promise we'll be there.
Yeah.
Offshawagon.com for merchandise. Check us out on Offshawagon on TikTok. Check out Let Them Eat Toast on TikTok. We're pretty close to 1,000 followers. We need to get there so we can actually put the links up in the bio for this shit. And then again, we will probably any day now start updating that again as well. Guys, this is a lot of work, which is why we kind of slack on it sometimes. But we appreciate you sticking with us, listening to us, and we hope you are enjoying the content that we are working to put out for you guys.
Yeah. As always, thanks for tuning in.
See you next week.